Hundreds of human hands reach out toward the girl, their fingers cold and desperate, clutching for her as they whisper and murmur and shout, calling her a saint, God's chosen, his holy messenger, pleading for her to relieve their pain, to wash away their burdens, to spill her blood for their healing. And in the center of them all, she stands still, rigid, unable to move, trapped within a tide of need and belief, as visions unfold behind her eyes, visions of a future already set in stone, a future that always ends in death, her death. And the black palms that grasp for her tighten, grip her throat, suffocate her breath. While the masses continue begging, praying aloud for a world blessed without her presence, not understanding the contradiction in their words, and though she struggles to speak, to breathe, to cry, she manages to bless them, her voice fragile, fractured, trembling with sorrow, offering them joy, holiness, light for their future. Even as her eyes well with tears she dares not let fall. Until suddenly, piercing through the weight of prayers and the pressure of touch, a voice explodes in her mind, like an alarm, shrill and deafening, declaring that he shall bless her instead, that she is his dear wife. And as this proclamation echoes through her soul, the black hands keep pressing, keep choking, silencing her completely, until with great effort she gasps and inhales the first clean breath, her heart pounding so violently she thinks it may rupture, and the darkness recedes. The pressure lifts, the vision ends, and she finds herself exactly where she stood before, in the temple's sacred space, surrounded by believers on their knees, gazing up at her with puzzled expressions, unsure why their saint faltered, why she appeared afraid, asking if she is all right. And in response, she rubs her arm with fingers that tremble slightly, confused herself by what just transpired. This girl whose gift is to see the future through the brush of skin, whose hands bring revelations and divine truth, who is seen by the world as a blessed vessel of God, as a sacred bearer of prophecy, as a holy guide toward salvation, though inside she feels the weight of her fate like chains, like a cruel title etched into her identity, the wife of God, a title that binds her to destiny, that shackles her voice under the authority of priests who decide what truths may be spoken aloud. And so she moves again, reaching forward to cradle the face of a visitor in her hands, speaking calmly, offering congratulations, saying good news will arrive soon, while the visitor's husband clutches his wife in joy, thanking the saint, thanking the divine, filled with hope for a child. And the girl, this quiet prophet, turns away. Speak with strangers, a rule, she repeats, drilled into her through years of quiet obedience, and he tells her to return in half an hour, warning her not to stay longer, and she bows, her steps slow and silent as she walks away, her eyes lowered, while behind her the man watches her go, then turns to a nearby boy, young and alert, assigning him the quiet duty of following the saint from a distance to ensure her safety, to protect the prophecy, and outside, fireworks burst in the sky, vivid with celebration, echoing across the temple grounds during the annual Divine Birth Festival, when people gather to seek visions and guidance, though the girl may only speak what the priests allow, and in exchange for her revelations, they leave gifts, offerings placed reverently at the site where her sacrifice has been foretold. And as she walks across the stone courtyard, her thoughts wander, imagining how simple life could be if she were not a saint, not a prophet, not bound to any god, just a girl, ordinary and invisible, until a call draws her attention. Children behind a fence, waving and calling out that she has dropped a glove, and surprised, she checks her hands, finding one bare, and walks over, accepting it with a quiet thank you, as the children stare at her in wonder, captivated by her presence, having never seen the saint so near, unprepared for her beauty. And one girl asks, almost shyly, if it is true she can see the future, since most are not allowed inside the temple during the celebration, and this moment is rare for them. And before she can answer, a boy scoffs, calling it nonsense, claiming no one can see the future, that it's all just a story for the faithful to cling to. And the girl hears his words like an echo from the past, her heart skipping a beat, freezing in place as memories resurface. And the other girl scolds him, demanding he apologize, but the saint stops her, saying it's all right, because the boy's voice mirrors another, someone from a year ago, someone who once looked at her the same way, with doubt and fire and betrayal. And just as she remembers, he appears, stepping forward unnoticed until now, and his name is Theo, a name she has not spoken in a year, and she sees him again, furious, bitter, broken, as he calls her name Noemi Bilon, demanding answers. Shouting accusations, his voice rough with old pain, calling her a witch, accusing her of hiding, of ruining him, of playing with fate, and she watches him with wide eyes, confused by the intensity of his anger. Because even now, after everything, Noemi still does not know what she did to cause him so much grief. A year ago, Theo arrives at the celebration, just like many others, hoping to finally meet the mysterious saint in person. He walks through the temple grounds with his brother, questioning what they are even doing there, eyes scanning the elaborate decorations and crowds of believers. His brother calmly explains that they are going to visit their great-aunt, and the elders have chosen Theo to deliver the jewelry box as a representative of their family. Hearing this, Theo lets out a dry laugh and rolls his eyes, making it clear he thinks it's ridiculous. He sneers, wondering aloud if the elders truly believe that someone like him, an uncouth, money-hungry bastard, should be the one carrying out such an honorable task. His words drip with sarcasm and frustration because deep down he is infuriated by their decision. If the elders have so much money and power, he thinks, then why haven't they used any of it to recover their stolen heirloom? Instead, they pour wealth into this temple, into offerings and rites, into honoring a girl with visions. He mutters about how he doesn't understand how people can throw away fortunes for what he sees as superstition, questioning their sanity and asking if they are really all right in the head. In his eyes, it's the same story every time. Priests collecting riches, hiding behind ritual, and fattening themselves off the blind faith of others. His brother, clearly more composed, warns him to be careful with his words, reminding him that 3 years have passed since their grandmother's death, and that they owe their continued well-being to Olak, the god of this temple. The brother adds that on their journey, he noticed the constellations, Ursa Major and Libra, lining up perfectly in the sky, a divine sign, he believes, of Olak's energy connecting heaven and earth. He insists they are lucky to have made it without getting lost. But Theo remains unconvinced, claiming they arrived safely only because the sky was clear and they could see the North Star. He suggests, half joking, that they should pretend to make the offering, then split it between themselves, pocketing half the wealth. He even promises to make sure no one finds out. His brother refuses, standing firm and reminding him that today Theo represents their family and must act with honor. But to Theo, it all feels hollow, meaningless, a pointless display. He suspects that the task fell to him not out of trust or respect, but because the eldest simply didn't want to wait in line himself. If there were any true importance to the offering, the eldest would have taken it upon himself. He clutches a flower in his hand, staring at it with vague detachment, lost in thought until he hears someone call to him. A soft voice welcomes him, and he turns around, stunned by what he sees. Standing before him is a girl whose beauty leaves him breathless, radiant and otherworldly, so pure in appearance that for a moment he forgets to breathe. This is the saint, and she is even more ethereal than the stories claim. She asks for his name, and he decides he wants this performance to end as quickly as possible. He kneels and, playing the part, kisses the back of her gloved hand, introducing himself as Theo Furgard. He immediately requests a blessing, eager to get it over with. Noemi the saint hesitates at his rush but does not refuse. She places her hands gently on his face, preparing to speak the blessing, but stops short. A sudden vision overwhelms her, a flash of his future, and it makes her flinch. Her eyes close tightly, reacting to what she sees, something terrible she cannot reveal. Still, she must say something, so she simply tells him he is about to make a big deal soon and congratulates him. Theo frowns, unimpressed. Is that all? Is that the grand insight she claims to receive from the divine? Anyone, he thinks, could have said something so vague. Is this what people pay their fortunes for? He asks if she has anything else to say before Olak. He chuckles, clearly mocking, and remarks that a person might work their whole life just to buy a single flower, but she, with a few empty words, receives armfuls of them in return. Rising to his feet, he leans in with a smirk, noting that the price of that flower must seem laughable to someone like her. His words sting, draining the color from her face. As he turns to leave, saying he needs to complete his offering, Noemi finds herself shaken. She is not used to such blunt disdain, and it cuts deeper than she expects. She clenches her fingers into her dress, debating whether she should do something forbidden, whether she should speak against the rules of the priests. Suddenly, the jewelry box slips and crashes to the floor, its contents spilling across the stone. She has reached out, grabbing Theo by the sleeve and stopping him. Before he can ask what she's doing, she steps forward and takes his face in her hands again, telling him not to move. She has made her decision. If he truly wants to see the divine, she will show it to him. A second vision overtakes her. She sees Theo again, 1 year from now. He does indeed make a major deal, but it ends in disaster. He is left in debt, the consequences overwhelming, the failure inevitable. She tells him exactly this, her voice low and clear. She knows he will return to this temple. She knows this because it is written in his future. And now, a year later, Theo stands before her once more, eyes burning with frustration. His ship has been lost. His goods are gone. His anger erupts as he accuses her of orchestrating it all, of arranging the failure just to make him believe, just to prove her own power. His accusations land like blows. She insists she would never do something like that, insulted and hurt by the suggestion. But Theo doesn't stop. He steps closer, voice raised, demanding answers. Is this the work of Olak, the god she serves? He grabs her hand tightly, forcing her to look at him. He wants another prediction. He wants to expose her. He wants to prove she is a fraud. He raises her hand to his face, daring her to see the truth. And she does. Through this touch, a new vision floods her mind. She sees them kissing. The moment is tender, unforced, strangely intimate. They are not unhappy nor coerced, but the vision bewilders her. She had not expected this. The clarity of it, the strangeness, leaves her stunned, her expression shifting to one of confusion as she struggles to process what it means. She cannot even tell for certain whether the vision belongs to Theo's future, or if somehow, impossibly, it reflects her own. The girl, stunned by the suddenness of what she sees, withdraws her hand as if burned, stepping back from the man who only moments ago gripped her with such boldness. She stares at him, unsettled, shaken not by his touch, but by what it reveals. Until now, every glimpse of her own fate has been soaked in suffering, burdened by sacrifice and inevitability, a path carved solely for death. Yet this time, the outcome shifts, and the vision moves with unfamiliar warmth, with closeness and life, and her heart beats faster as she tries to comprehend it. She remains locked in his gaze until a sharp, commanding voice cuts through the moment, loud, male, and clearly displeased. The voice belongs to the old priest, the head of the temple, and his face twists with suspicion and outrage as he demands to know what this strange outsider is doing beside her. She turns, startled, and at once understands that she has been watched again, that the priests have assigned someone to follow her steps, to make sure she remains on her narrow, controlled path. She stands frozen for a breath, for a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat she questions everything. Whether she should return to the temple, whether she should continue as they expect, whether she should walk willingly toward the end they have prepared for her. And she knows the answer. If she returns, they will sacrifice her. That part of the prophecy is certain. So she grabs Theo's hand, eyes wide with urgency, fear flashing like lightning behind them, and without offering any explanation, she pulls him into motion and pleads with her grip alone for him to follow. He is bewildered, but does not resist, and together they run, fleeing down a corridor, away from the furious voice of the priest calling after them, his steps echoing in pursuit. Once they are finally out of sight, hidden from the priest's line of vision, Theo pulls back slightly, rubbing his head and blinking in confusion. He looks at her and asks what on earth she is doing. She breathes heavily, still shaken, and apologizes for dragging him along so abruptly, explaining that she had no other choice. Her voice trembles as she asks him what he would do if he witnessed something he believed impossible, something that defied logic and expectation. He answers slowly, almost cautiously, admitting that this is the reason he returned at all, because what she said a year ago actually came true. She reminds him she did not lie. But before anything else can be said, The sound of footsteps rings out again, this time from the other end of the hallway. The two freeze, listening closely, hearts pounding in sync. Someone approaches. The girl reacts quickly, suggesting they hide, and before he can object, she pushes him around the corner, but she does so too hard, too suddenly, and they lose their balance. Both of them fall, tumbling together to the ground, the impact surprisingly soft but awkward, and by the force of the fall, their faces come too close, too fast, their lips meet in an accidental kiss. The moment from her earlier vision plays out in real time, and that very contact triggers something more. A new wave of visions crashes into her mind. She cannot stop it. She sees flashes, a moment on a ship with Theo, joy on both their faces, a happiness that stings with its unfamiliarity, and then another scene, one filled with a red-haired stranger she has never seen before. More images flood in, jumbled, vibrant, intimate. The next is one that makes her body stiffen and her breath halt. Something sensual, an erotic scene with Theo that she doesn't understand at all. Confused by the intensity, overwhelmed by sensations she's never experienced, she unintentionally bites his lip. Theo reacts with a quiet groan of pain and pulls away, crawling back slightly, eyes filled with mixed frustration and disbelief. He stares at her, demanding to know why she bit him, questioning how someone who is supposedly a saint could kiss a man she barely knows. He pauses, eyes wandering around, only now realizing that the large statue looming above them belongs to Olak. They have fled right back into the temple, into one of its older inner chambers. He frowns, confused and irritated, and directly asks if this was her plan all along, if she meant to bring him here under false pretenses. Noemi doesn't answer immediately. Her eyes remain fixed on the memory of those visions. Her silence is heavy. Then she speaks again, voice soft but certain, telling him that they must do it again. Theo blinks, not understanding, and asks what she means. She clarifies. Another kiss. She needs to see more. She tells him that if he agrees, she will tell him how to handle his trading crisis and show him how to avoid ruin. She will give him everything he wants to know about his future, but only if he helps her in return. Theo stares at her, skeptical, trying to read her motives. He asks if she truly wants to make a deal using a kiss. She nods once, serious and unwavering. He wonders silently whether this is yet another trick, another performance orchestrated by the priests or the temple, but something in her expression tells him it's not. She seems different now, desperate, honest. He tells her that she should prepare herself. He hates wasting time. He reaches for her, brushing strands of her golden hair away from her face, letting his fingers rest on her cheek before sliding to her waist and pulling her toward him. He leans in and kisses her again, a deliberate act this time. Not rushed or accidental. The contact is immediate, the effect undeniable. A new series of visions flood into her thoughts. She sees green meadows stretching beneath a brilliant sun, children laughing and running freely across the grass. Behind them, standing hand in hand, are herself and Theo, smiling, alive, no trace of death in their eyes. These visions are not cloudy or cryptic. They are clear, vivid, full of life. For the first time, she is certain these are her future. Kissing Theo has changed something fundamental. Until now, she believed the future was fixed, a decree carved into her bones by the God she serves. But this moment cracks that belief, showing her a possibility that had never existed before. Finally, from behind the veil of fate, she catches a glimpse of a different life, one where she lives. Fulfilling her part of the bargain, she tells him where to find his lost goods, that some of them have sunk to the bottom of the Iris River, just below the cliffs of Sandy Hollow. But she withholds the rest, stating calmly that if he wishes to know the full location, he must come to her again, tomorrow night. Only then she will tell him everything. Our guy makes his way into the Bellin estate just as previously arranged with our girl, slipping past the guards and climbing the stone wall that encircles the grand property, taking extra care not to draw attention to himself as he navigates the shadows with quiet precision. Despite agreeing to this meeting, our guy still questions his motives, unable to fully grasp why he continues to involve himself with this girl who's already proven to be more than just a simple saint. Yet the discoveries made by his men in the exact spot our girl described leave him too intrigued to walk away now. This can't be coincidence. There's a pattern. a purpose, something deeper tying her to the strange events surrounding the stolen goods. Whether or not she truly sees the future, she is undeniably part of the truth he needs to uncover. He finds her chamber window, the same window he's used before, and lightly knocks. Within moments, our girl opens it, helping him inside with practiced familiarity. He eases himself into the room, groaning slightly as he lands and complains about how unnecessarily high her chambers are. She seems delighted to see him, her face lighting up with excitement, and before he can even take in the scene, she pushes a book right into his hands. She opens it for him, pointing to a particular passage as she begins to explain the thoughts that have consumed her throughout the day. Without any build-up or subtlety, our girl announces that she wants to spend the night with him, leaving our guy momentarily stunned and confused. He tells her she likely doesn't even know what she's suggesting, and she clarifies without flinching that she means exactly what a man and woman do when they sleep together. Our girl, the one destined to be God's bride, wants to violate the sacred law that binds her. She declares her rebellion against the Gospel of Olak, which states that God's chosen must remain pure. Slamming the book shut, she looks directly at our guy and tells him that she no longer wishes to be the wife of a deity. Instead, she wants to break every expectation laid on her and begin writing her own story. Her plan is simple: convince the world she has sinned. But it doesn't even require the actual act. They just have to be caught. Our guy processes this with a heavy heart. She doesn't want intimacy. She wants scandal. She wants to be free. He tells her this sounds like a suicide mission, especially with the temple's clerics watching her every move. Our girl insists she's seen the outcome, and it's not death that awaits him. In her visions, our guy survives and even thrives, years from now, wearing an iron crown. He pauses, intrigued for the first time. She describes the crown, silver, elegant, and embedded with a compass. That detail shocks him. It's far too specific. It's too personal. It's something only someone close to his family's secrets could know. He grabs her hands and demands an explanation. How does she know? She calmly explains that it comes to her in dreams and flashes. She sees him wearing it again and again. Suddenly, everything changes. Our guy starts to believe she really might possess the gift of foresight. She promises more. Predictions about his trading company, the path to the crown, and his eventual rise. But she asks for something in return. Help her escape the identity forced upon her. Help her break free of the temple, remove the chains of her divine role, and choose a new future. Our guy, conflicted but moved by the fire in her voice, agrees. She smiles, her entire body relaxing as she directs him toward the bed. He lies back as she climbs on top of him, adjusting herself carefully and asking if he wants to switch positions in case she's too heavy. He stares at her in disbelief and asks if she's reading from somewhere. She holds up the book again, a text apparently passed among the maids, and tells him it explains everything about what happens between men and women. She leans down, her voice low, asking if he likes it so far. Our guy mutters under his breath, calling her frustrating, feeling like she's putting on an act, and tells her to just go ahead and do what she wants. But nothing happens. Time ticks by, and she remains still. He turns his head toward her and asks how long she intends to stay like that. She looks blank, slightly panicked, and asks if he's uncomfortable or if she should reposition. He says he's fine, but wonders why she hasn't moved. That's when it clicks. Our girl truly has no idea what she's doing. It becomes clear this will take all night if he doesn't intervene. He slowly sits up, leans into her space, and catches her by surprise. He tells her that nothing believable will happen the way she's going about it. Her face turns a deep shade of red. She's embarrassed, but still committed. He tells her to start making strange sounds so that anyone outside might believe something is happening. She nods, but before either of them can act further, the guards outside her door respond to the noise and rush in. They storm the room, weapons ready, and find our girl in a compromising position with our guy. He lets out a sigh, knowing this response was far too fast to be coincidence. The temple's eyes have never truly left her. The guards drag him away without much resistance, warning him to stay away from the girl. Our guy says nothing to them, instead turning back to our girl with a pointed look, reminding her that now she owes him. She watches him go, shocked yet firm in her resolve. She never intended to break their deal. He had done what she asked, and now it was her turn to uphold her side. The consequences for her are heavy. The temple's faithful may turn on her. She may be called a traitor to the divine. But in her eyes, even eternal shame is better than dying to satisfy their twisted rituals. Soon after, our guy is thrown out of the estate, his presence now a forbidden memory. Inside, the head priest orders punishment for the saint's guards, lashing them across their backs in her presence for their failure. Our girl pleads on their behalf, her voice desperate. Eventually, the priest relents, allowing the punishment to be suspended. He reminds her, with venom in his voice, that she is to be God's chosen wife, and this is not a title she can cast aside so easily. The guards themselves don't understand the reason for their punishment, because the priest commands all involved to remain silent. No one can know what occurred in that room. One of the temple's acolytes informs the priest that Theodore Furgard has also been ordered to stay silent, and this news brings a flicker of satisfaction to the old man. Still, he feels uneasy. The danger is far from over. The priest tells our girl that they were lucky this time. God must have turned his eyes away for a fleeting moment. By Olak's mercy, she remains untouched in the public eye. He declares that when she reaches the age of adulthood, the sacred ceremony will proceed as originally planned, no matter what shadows try to interfere. Our girl objects with a fearful tone, insisting that placing her on the altar after it has already been defiled would bring down dire consequences, her voice trembling as she attempts to plead with the priest to reconsider the ritual. She is genuinely terrified of what the ceremony entails, trying to reason with him, but he doesn't give her the courtesy of listening. Instead, he silences her with authority, asking how a mere sacrificial lamb like her dares to presume she knows the will of God. With cold eyes and measured steps, the priest begins to leave, throwing sharp words over his shoulder, saying she has already brought disgrace upon their honor and that of Lord Olak. The conversation ends abruptly. Just before exiting, he instructs her to stop tainting the sacred meaning of being the wife of God Olak. Our girl watches him go with profound disappointment, her body stiff with emotional restraint, tears welling up in her eyes as he orders her to return to her chambers and reflect on her shameful behavior. At the same time, our guy is escorted out of the estate and handed over to his older brother, who wastes no time scolding him for what occurred. His brother is visibly agitated and demands to know whether our guy understands the cost it to free him after such a scandal. He reminds him that it was only thanks to House Balan's desire to keep the entire incident quiet that their family was spared from public disgrace. This revelation shocks our guy. He doesn't understand why the priests, so rigid and obsessed with appearances, would choose not to expose the situation. As they move away from the estate, his brother continues lecturing him, firmly warning him not to meddle in House Balan's affairs ever again. But our guy isn't even listening anymore. Instead, his mind is already racing for a way to sneak back inside. As his brother keeps talking, oblivious to the shifting silence, our guy seizes the opportunity and slips away, disappearing quietly, leaving his brother standing alone mid-sentence. Driven by something he can't name, our guy makes his way back into the estate. He doesn't care that he was officially banished. He needs answers. Our girl still hasn't told him what he came for, the truth about his family's heirloom. He feels like a fool for giving her what she wanted without securing the information he needed first. Crouched in the shadowed corridor, hiding behind a column and avoiding the patrols, our guy is torn between his pride and the pull of something deeper. As he waits, he overhears two maids talking in hushed voices, unaware of his presence. They whisper about our girl, expressing genuine sympathy for her fate. They mention her twin brother, whose portrait has just been publicly displayed, and how different their lives turned out. While Noemi's brother lives freely, respected and privileged, our girl is imprisoned by holy expectations, treated as divine property. The maids whisper how the title, Wife of God, is a curse in disguise, nothing less than a death sentence. They call it murder veiled in devotion. They speak of Lord Enzo, her brother, who is soon to be married, while our girl won't live long enough to see the ceremony. One maid sadly says that despite Noemi's divine title, her life is worse than theirs. The weight of this revelation stuns our guy. Until now, he always believed our girl was like royalty, pampered and revered, but this truth turns his view upside down. Meanwhile, our girl sits alone in her room, hunched over with her elbows on her knees and her head buried in her hands. She feels shattered. Her last attempt to deceive the priest and change her fate has failed. To her, this was her final hope, her only lifeline. But now all seems lost. She's convinced that death is unavoidable, that this is the will of her God, and she has no power to defy it. So deep is her despair that she doesn't even notice when our guy quietly enters and reaches out to her, startling her as he places a hand on her shoulder. Wasting no time, our guy asks if it's true that she is to be sacrificed to Olak. She stares at him in disbelief, stunned that he came back, unsure how to even respond. The tears she's been holding back now fall freely. Our guy gently urges her to quiet down, his expression full of concern. He admits he doesn't understand the ritual or what it actually means. Through her sobs, our girl explains that the ritual is believed to be a way to soften Olak's wrath. The elders believe that by sacrificing her, they are ensuring mercy from a god who once revealed this divine law to them long ago. Our guy grows visibly tense as she speaks, his fists clenched from the frustration that wells up inside. He mutters that elders, regardless of where they come from, always twist the world to match their own stubborn beliefs. He knows this firsthand. Even in his own family, he was scorned for choosing the path of trade, seen as vulgar simply because it didn't align with noble traditions. Pushing those bitter thoughts aside, our guy tries to lighten the mood. He asks her to imagine if Olak really did want a wife. Would she choose to be his? Our girl, though still in tears, immediately says no. She could never choose that path for herself. She wanted freedom. She tried to fight back. She recalls how she once cut her ceremonial gloves with scissors in defiance, hoping that act of protest would change something. But she was silenced, pacified, and nothing changed. She's come to accept that she is meant to die at the hands of those who call it divine duty. But our guy doesn't accept this. He tells her plainly that she shouldn't have to sacrifice herself just because others expect it. She can live differently. She can rid herself of the status forced onto her. Leaning closer, his tone softens as he tells her she doesn't have to marry a god. She can marry someone else. This startles our girl. Her voice shakes as she says that no man would ever dare marry her. Doing so would invoke divine punishment. But our guy gently takes her hand in his, looking directly into her eyes, telling her that what she needs is someone who isn't afraid of Olak and values her for who she truly is. He tells her there's a place far from here, a country called Slan, where marriage to someone like her is not only allowed, but respected. He knows this country well, and he offers to take her there. In Slan, they won't need to fear gods or elders. He reminds her that she already knows he's not afraid of Olak and that he needs her abilities. That's why he asks her, right there and then, to marry him, not as part of a divine plan, but as her own choice. Our girl, her golden hair catching the dim light, looks at our guy in complete shock, overwhelmed by his unexpected proposal. Our guy tells her that in Slan, there are no prohibitions on love, no forced unions, and no rules that dictate whom one should marry or how to live. People fall in love freely, marry whom they wish, and write their own destinies without fear of divine punishment or the interference of rigid institutions. He saw it with his own eyes. Our girl listens, quiet but attentive, and then raises a question that cuts to the heart of the matter. If he takes her as his wife, he might never be able to return to this land again. And she asks him if he's ready for that kind of life, one filled with uncertainty and exile. Without hesitation, our guy answers that he is. He's ready to give everything up if that's what it takes. Her visions, as strange and unexpected as they are, have already proven to be real, and if she can help him uncover the truth behind his family heirloom, he's willing to leave his homeland forever. All or nothing. Looking into her eyes, he asks her to share with him every vision she's had, every detail she's seen about his path and their possible future, and if she agrees, they will escape together. But she pauses, struggling internally, her conscience gnawing at her. She wonders if she's being selfish, if she's using his future as currency just to save her own life. Seeing her hesitation, our guy leans closer and gently reminds her that if she can become an ordinary girl, just a girl, no longer Olak's bride, then the temple will have no more claim on her, and they'll have no reason to pursue her anymore. She will be free. He takes her hand again and softly sums it all up. She will get what she's always wanted, and he will finally get what he's been searching for. His words strike something deep within her. She weighs everything, thinking it through, realizing that this plan isn't just for her survival, it's mutual, a shared freedom. Strength rising inside her, she squeezes his hand, meets his gaze, and tells him with calm confidence that she agrees to marry him. The next morning, the city is ablaze with rumors. Word spreads faster than fire in dry grass. The saint is engaged. People from all walks of life chatter in disbelief about how the divine bride of Olak, the sacred virgin, has suddenly chosen to marry Theodore Furgard, a merchant from a noble family known more for commerce than piety. Shock floods every street and alleyway, and whispers question whether she can still be called a saint if she belongs to a man now. In the Belon estate, chaos erupts. No one knows where Olak's wife has gone. Horses are missing, her chambers are empty, and panic overtakes the clergy. The head priest, seething with rage, curses her name, calling her reckless and selfish and saying she must have truly desired death to commit such sacrilege. He immediately summons Enzo, our girl's twin brother, and commands him to retrieve her, to bring her back and deliver her to Olak's embrace. Enzo remains calm, surprisingly so, and promises without emotion that he will return her. A search party forms quickly, galloping through the city streets, hot on what they believe to be the trail of the fleeing saint and her companion. Soon they spot a pair on horseback, and the woman among them bears an uncanny resemblance to our girl. Without hesitation, the guards pursue them, one spinning a lasso and hurling it through the air, successfully catching the rider. They close in fast, swords drawn and prepared to reclaim the fugitive. But as they pull the cloaks back, their confidence turns to confusion. It isn't Noemi Balan or Theodore. They've been tricked. A decoy. Just as our guy had predicted. The night before, he shared this escape strategy with our girl. Taking horses would lead to a predictable chase, so he intentionally released a few from the stables to throw the priests off their scent while he and our girl took a quieter path to freedom. At that very moment, while the search party follows a dead lead into the wilderness, our guy and our girl are almost at the harbor. They're only minutes away from the ship that will carry them out of this land. The vessel has already begun to drift from the dock, the ropes untied, the waves gently pulling it into motion. They shout to the sailors, trying to get their attention. The crew hears them, but the ship doesn't stop. Time is running out. Without hesitation, our guy sprints forward and leaps off the edge of the pier, landing hard on the ship's deck, his boots slamming onto the wooden planks, startling the crew. He turns instantly, reaching out to our girl and yelling for her to jump. He promises to catch her. She stands frozen for a second, looking at him with wide eyes, fear gripping her heart. Behind her, voices grow louder. The guards are closing in. They shout her name, beg her to stop, call her foolish. But she ignores them. She places all her trust in our guy and leaps. For a moment, it feels like time stops, and then he catches her in mid-air, wrapping his arms around her tightly and helping her land safely on the deck. Her feet touch wood, not water, and she clings to him as the wind fills the sails. A sailor near the helm laughs and announces that boarding is now truly complete, while another blows a horn to mark their departure. The ship pulls away from the shore. The city of her past begins to shrink in the distance, swallowed by the horizon. Our girl finally steps away from our guy, taking a few tentative steps toward the rail, her eyes locked on the endless blue. For the first time, she sees the sea not in visions, not in dreams, but with her own eyes. It's breathtaking. The waves glisten like glass under the morning sun, and the salty air carries a kind of peace she never thought she'd feel. Behind her, our guy calls to a bird that circles overhead, and the creature obediently lands on his wrist. Curious, she asks what it's for. He tells her it's a messenger bird, trained to deliver important messages to those he trusts. He has a friend in Slan, someone reliable, someone who can help them get started once they arrive. He ties a small scroll and packet to the bird's leg, then releases it into the sky. The bird flaps its wings and disappears into the clouds. She watches it, marveling at the grace of its flight, struck by how something so small can carry something so important. As she lowers her gaze, our guy steps closer and reminds her not to remove her hood. It draws attention. She nods, but her thoughts drift, worried about the servants and the people she left behind. What will happen to them? Will they be punished for her escape? Our guy reassures her calmly, telling her that they'll be fine. The priests are angry, but they won't risk turning more people against them. They'll need to cover this up, pretend the saint was taken by fate. He begins talking about the long journey ahead and the life they'll start in Slan, but she isn't really listening anymore. Her focus is on the sea. Drawn like a magnet, she walks to the edge of the ship, staring out at the quiet waves, lost in the surreal beauty of it all. She never imagined she'd see this view, not in dreams, not in visions, but in real life. And now, as the land fades behind her, she begins to believe that maybe this really is the start of something new. Our girl thinks the living sea is even more beautiful than it ever appeared in her visions, alive, vast, deep, and the salty air that surrounds her feels nothing like anything she's breathed before. It fills her lungs completely, and she greedily takes it in, smiling with unrestrained joy. Still, she's caught off guard by the scent. Sharp, wet, not unpleasant but definitely unfamiliar. She hadn't expected the sea to smell like that. Her eyes light up when she spots dolphins leaping beside the ship, creatures she'd only ever seen in books, and she stretches onto her toes to get a closer look, leaning dangerously far over the edge of the railing. Before she can fall, our guy is right behind her, placing his hands firmly on her shoulders and gently pulling her back, telling her to be more careful, because they still have a long journey ahead of them, and it would be a problem if she got herself injured or worse. Laughing brightly, our girl tells him about the dolphins, though she calls them whales, prompting him to softly correct her and explain the difference. Evening falls, casting soft shadows across the ship, and some of the passengers gather on the deck to drink, talk, and rest. Our guy drinks from a wooden mug, calmly observing as our girl plays and dances with a few children, full of energy as if the weight of her past life has fallen off her shoulders. In just 2 more days, they are expected to reach the black desert rocks at the edge of the wastelands, where they're to meet his trusted friend, someone who will help them get safely into Slan. But despite their progress, our guy realizes that one big challenge remains: his companion. She's unpredictable, often careless, and naive to a dangerous degree. He has to watch her constantly, reminding her not to eat or drink everything she's offered. At one point, she almost shares food with a dog, saying that since the dog trusted the food, it must be fine for her too. Another time, she somehow manages to tangle her hair in one of the ship's wooden fixtures while simply walking past it. He honestly wonders if she's going to make it to Slan alive. Yet, despite all that, she suddenly rushes toward him, her blonde hair bouncing, her eyes filled with excitement. She smiles with such sincerity, thanking him from the bottom of her heart. For the first time, she says she feels truly happy. Our guy is stunned, momentarily frozen by her words, not expecting that kind of gratitude. He exhales slowly and confesses that this is the most exhausted he's ever been. Laughing it off, he tells her to go and dance. Without hesitation, our girl grins and darts back to join the sailors, her laughter echoing across the deck as she dances with a young man, spinning under the stars. Our guy watches her in silence, quietly amused and more than a little charmed by how much life she radiates. Later, her high spirits vanish when seasickness finally hits her. She vomits into the sea, while our guy stands next to her, waiting patiently until she recovers. Rubbing her temples, she tells him she's dizzy, and he calmly explains it's seasickness, nothing more. She admits, in a frustrated voice, that she never saw this in her visions. That surprises him. He always assumed her prophecies were more complete. She clarifies that her visions come in fragments, disconnected like scattered puzzle pieces. Sometimes she sees a bird in flight with no idea where it's going or why. She can never see the full picture. Our guy finds that troubling, uneasy now, knowing he placed so much on a future she herself couldn't fully predict. She turns the question on him. How important is this heirloom, really, that he'd risk everything for it? He replies without hesitation, saying it's proof that his life has value. He explains that as a child he trusted only one person, someone he looked up to more than anyone, and from that person he inherited the heirloom. Losing it meant losing more than just a possession. It was part of his identity, and he is determined to get it back. Our girl looks at him, confused, saying she still doesn't understand how an object can define someone's worth. He just grins and tells her that some things are too complicated to explain, calling it the business of adults. Since he's keeping his secrets to himself, she shifts the conversation and asks him to tell her more about Slan. What kind of place is it really? He tells her it's a fertile land, full of color, full of energy, a place where people live freely, like an oasis blooming in the middle of a desert. Our girl repeats the word oasis in a whisper, tasting it on her lips like something fragile and hopeful, wishing from the bottom of her heart that this distant land will be the refuge they've both been chasing. Time on the ship flows quickly, and after a few more days, they are already riding on horseback through the desert, the heat rising around them like a curtain of fire. Our guy points toward the horizon, where dark shapes rise, black rocks, jagged and ominous. He tells her that once they cross those, they will be considered citizens of Slan, no longer fugitives, but people protected by the laws of the land. They're close now, closer than they've ever been, and a sense of relief starts to settle between them. But suddenly, without warning, an arrow whistles through the air, slicing past them so closely it nearly grazes her shoulder. Our guy jerks the reins, reacting fast, heart pounding. Our girl spins around in terror, dread flooding her veins, knowing even before she sees them who must be there. Behind them, riding hard and fast, is the search party. They've been caught, and leading them, bow in hand, eyes locked in cold focus, is none other than her twin brother. Enzo looks at his sister and her companion with calm, dispassionate eyes, speaking in an even tone that surprises more than intimidates. He admits he's impressed by her escape, though maybe it's her accomplice that truly caught him off guard. Our girl, momentarily stunned by the confrontation, can't figure out what to say, while our guy narrows his eyes, staring fiercely at the squad behind them. Enzo begins to reach for another arrow, muttering under his breath about how they'd taken the sea route and managed to reach the very border. Our girl screams at our guy to run, and without hesitation, he grabs the bridle and pulls the horse forward into a gallop, the hooves pounding against the sun-baked sand. The guards shift, ready to pursue, but for some reason, Enzo doesn't signal them forward. There's no fury on his face, only a flicker of amusement. To him, her desperation is almost laughable. All her life, he'd watched her flinch at rebellion, never truly believing in the act of escape. And now here she is, clawing at freedom like her life depends on it. The chase resumes soon after, and it doesn't take long for the pursuing squad to catch up. Our guy curses under his breath, frustrated by the slow pace of their horse, the weight of urgency pressing on his chest. Then, in the middle of the flight, as he's shifting position in the saddle, his hand brushes against our girl's, and in that flash of contact, she's struck by a sudden vision. Without explaining, she urges him to steer toward the shadow of the rocks. He doesn't ask questions. He trusts her. With a nod, he shifts their direction, and the horse picks up speed. Wind whips against them, sand kicking up behind their trail as the guards gain ground. Enzo watches the change in their route and sighs, disappointed. This chase, in his eyes, is proving dull. He draws back his bowstring calmly, without any change in expression, and watches as his prey nears what looks like a dead end. He'd expected something smarter, something bolder. With a breathless stillness, he releases the arrow. His hand doesn't even twitch. The arrow whistles through the air and lands square in the horse's thigh. The beast cries out, rears violently, and the momentum sends both riders tumbling to the ground. Our guy throws his arm around our girl, twisting midair to shield her from the impact. They crash onto the sand. He lands on his back with a harsh grunt, and she lands chest first against him. Panicked, she calls out his name, looking at his face, asking if he's okay. He groans, wincing. He isn't injured, just hurt from the impact of the fall. Before they can scramble to their feet, the guards are already upon them. One seizes our guy, locking his arms behind his back, while another restrains our girl. Enzo steps forward, having handed his bow off to one of the soldiers. He walks with a cold calm, a predator closing in. He admits he's a little surprised. He didn't think any of the pious fur guards would dare to marry the saint. By doctrine, the punishment is clear. His whole family should be executed for the blasphemy. But the priests at the Balan estate, in their eagerness to appear merciful, had agreed to take only one life, Theo's. The moment the words leave his lips, our girl's blood runs cold. She feels it before she thinks it. If she doesn't act now, he's going to kill our guy right here. Her body moves on instinct. She jerks free from the guard's grip, grabs a sword from the sheath of the man beside her, and points it directly at her own throat. Her voice rings through the air. If Enzo so much as touches our guy, she'll do it. She'll kill herself. Her eyes burn with defiance as she declares that even then, they still won't get what they want. She orders her brother to release him. Deep inside, she's sure Enzo won't let her die. Not because of blood ties, but because they need her alive. They need her for the sacrifice. She repeats the threat, holding the blade firm, and though Enzo remains outwardly cold, there's a flicker in his stance, a hesitation. He calls her a cornered mouse, says he doesn't understand why she still resists, still fights the will of God. His voice is eerily calm, but their exchange is cut short by a new voice. A sharp, commanding shout echoes from the cliffs above, ordering everyone to stop. In the next breath, a spear whistles through the air and slices past Enzo, grazing his cheek and drawing a thin line of blood. The guards flinch, some rushing to check on him, but Enzo is more stunned than injured, his stoicism rattled by the unexpected assault. On the black rocks above them stands a small group of warriors, clad in white bandanas, spears glinting in the sun. They descend quickly, weapons ready. Their leader, standing tall on the ridge, speaks loud and clear, locking eyes with Enzo. He says there's an old saying in Slan, that any land beneath the shadow of the mother rock belongs to them. A smirk plays on his lips, dripping with sarcasm, as he adds that maybe the Balans haven't heard of it. His golden eyes gleam with dangerous amusement, but his words aren't for Enzo. They're directed squarely at our guy. With a wry smirk, the red-haired man says that the letter he received convinced him they could at least make it safely to the rocks. But had he waited just a moment longer, he'd be talking to our guy's headless corpse. Everyone turns as Pierre, bold and confident, leaps down from the jagged black cliffs with his spear in hand, landing in the sand with the poise of a warrior, commanding attention without effort. Our guy winces, brushing off the sting in his back as he retorts that Pierre's entrance may have been dramatic, but what matters is that it was perfectly timed. Pierre shifts his stance and, without looking at Enzo, loudly declares that our guy is his friend and a citizen of Slan. His tone is warm, but laced with threat, as he announces that the people of Slan are always happy to welcome those who seek citizenship, but stepping into their land armed turns warm welcomes into something much colder. Enzo, unmoved by the flourish, narrows his gaze at Pierre's shoulder, spotting the thick red ink that coils across his skin. That tattoo, it marks him as a knight of the Slan Palace. That changes things. Continuing now could mean far worse consequences. With a nod that ripples through his squad, Enzo orders his men to lower their weapons. Pierre's smirk grows into a grin as he praises the one sensible man among them, then gestures for them to return his spear, the one he'd thrown earlier, the very one that grazed Enzo's cheek. With tension still lingering in the dry air, the guards mount their horses, one of them close to Enzo whispering for instructions, but Enzo replies calmly that there's nothing more to do here. They'll report what happened to the Archbishop. Let him decide what's next. As the soldiers ride off, our guy is helped up by the Slan warriors. The moment he's steady on his feet, our girl rushes to him, throwing her arms around him, her voice cracking as she says his name through tears. She's overwhelmed with relief that he's alive. But the moment is cut short when Pierre walks over, yanks our guy playfully to his side, and throws an arm around his shoulders like an old brother in arms. With his usual grin, he says it's been far too long, and honestly, he's surprised to see his friend alive and dragging around such interesting company. Our guy chuckles and praises Pierre's dramatic rescue, saying he couldn't have timed it better. Pierre shrugs it off, saying he had to make a show to prove just how close they really are. Turning to our girl, our guy introduces Pierre as the very friend to whom he sent that message on the ship. Pierre gives a sly grin and bows low, kissing her hand with exaggerated charm. But as their skin touches, her body freezes. Another vision pierces her mind. This time, she sees Pierre holding the Furgard family's lost heirloom, the crown. Why does he have it? Before she can process the full meaning, the vision fades as Pierre releases her hand. She doesn't say anything, but a thought lingers. Maybe he will help them find it. Pierre, rubbing the back of his neck, mutters under his breath, "Did they really send all those guards just to bring this girl back?" He turns to our guy and jokes that he honestly thought he'd die a lonely bachelor, not a romantic rebel. Our girl watches him closely, uncertain, her instincts on edge. But if our guy trusts Pierre, she decides not to let her suspicions take over. Pierre grins again and promises to personally escort them to his village, where they can finally rest. Our guy teases him about having too much free time, to which Pierre replies, quite seriously, that he quit. He's no longer the nation's top knight or army commander. He's staying put now, protecting his village from within. Our guy wants to ask why. Why would someone like Pierre walk away from power? But he doesn't. If Pierre wanted to share, he would. They saddle up, and as they ride, our guy glances at our girl, noting how tired she looks, how the past few days have worn her down. She needs rest. Pulling the reins, he beckons her closer and offers to help her onto the horse. She asks where they're headed, and with a warm smile, he tells her they're going to one of the most beautiful villages in Slan, nestled along the main trade route, full of life, color, and surprises. He lifts her gently onto the horse, adjusts the reins, and reassures her she's going to love it there. The detachment from Slan moves as a fluid unit, the hours slipping by beneath the desert sun. Finally, as twilight begins to settle, Pierre raises his hand and announces that they've arrived. He chuckles, noting it's been far too long since our guy last visited. Our guy dismounts and extends his hand to our girl, helping her down with care. She says she's fine, but the moment her feet hit the ground, she stumbles. Pierre reacts fast, catching her by the waist before she can fall. He tells her to be careful. The land isn't what it once was. There are patches of shifting earth now, places where the ground gives way beneath your feet and pulls you under. Pierre turns to his warriors and commands them to watch their step closely. As they move forward, our girl walks slowly, her eyes scanning every patch of sand near her boots. Just ahead of her, there's one of those deadly spots, subtle, silent, waiting. One wrong step and escape would be nearly impossible. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and ensure to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time.